HUD staff to the industry, thereby saving staff time in reviewing and processing loan applications. However, and as you'll see in the presentation, HUD staff remains legally responsible for all environmental determinations, and the communication pathways between partners, program staff, and environmental field officers will remain in place. As Greg mentioned, and as you read in the email invite, consultants and PHAs are encouraged to start using HEROS on February 1. However, due to a technical issue, the rollout to FHA multifamily programs is delayed until May 1st. We're disappointed that we are unable to participate in the rollout at this time, but we're also confident that the suggested May 1st date is both realistic and likely. Notwithstanding the delay in the rollout, we hope that you'll listen carefully to what is being presented, remain engaged, and participate in the Q&A post-presentation. Thanks for attending. Turn it over to Liz and Sarah.
Thanks so much, Tom. This is Sarah Jensen, and for those of you that don't know, I'm the Environmental Compliance Officer for Housing, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you today. As you all know, HEROS has already rolled out to RAD in 2015 and to multifamily production in 2016. So we've got that working fairly well, and this adds a big new step, which is rolling out to partners. A couple of things that I want to point out. First, the definition of partner in the context today means consultants, contractors, lenders, applicants, public housing authorities. Those are our partners. And as Tom mentioned, this is optional at this point, but strongly encouraged. And it's only at this point for RAD. That's opening, the system is opening for RAD partners tomorrow. And for multifamily FHA, it's opening with some system updates that will be coming in May. It is not open at this time for healthcare and hospital programs, although those staff are using HEROS. We're not rolling out to partners for those programs at this time. And for those of you in RAD, it's important to note that this is only open for partners on the Part 50 side, so when HUD is doing the review. On the Part 58 side for RAD, when responsible entities are doing the review, there is no partner access at this point. I wanted to make a point about registration. So we sent out external invitations through both the RAD program and the multifamily FHA program, asking people to get registered. People that registered through the RAD staff will get their login credentials today or tomorrow and will be able to start using HEROS directly. For partners that registered through FHA staff, we'll be sending a notification that HUD has processed their request, but let them know that they won't actually get the credentials to get access until closer to the May rollout. So if you get any questions about that, that is what's happening. And just as a point of housekeeping, I just sent to those of you that were on an Outlook invite, I just sent you a copy of the slides so you can follow along and make notes. And we've also posted them to the GoToMeeting. I'm not sure, I'm not seeing them.
Yeah, they're attached. Yes, Sarah, this is Robert. They're attached as a handout. So those of
oh,
you
yes,
who are...
thank you. Thank you. There's a handout button and they're attached. It's called Partner Rollout Internal Slides. So if you want to download them directly from the GoToMeeting, you can do that also. Thank you, Robert. Okay, so on the next slide, Tom covered this, and I'll just reiterate that the main thing that is changing is that partners can now, at least the partners that have access, which tomorrow will be the RAD partners, can go directly into HEROS and can enter documentation and upload documentation directly in the system. So the HUD staff will now be reviewing that information rather than uploading it. What doesn't change is that HUD staff are still the preparer and are still responsible, legally responsible for the environmental determinations, and the communication pathways that we already have set remain the same. So a little more detail on the next slide here. So this really doesn't change what's happening now. So applicants and third parties can prepare supporting documentation. HUD must independently evaluate their work. So just like we're doing now, HUD staff have to review, supplement, correct, ask for additional information. It'll be exactly the same. It's just that this information will already be in HEROS. And certain aspects of the environmental review, just like before, must be completed by HUD. That doesn't change. One key example is HUD staff must send the letters to tribes. We cannot delegate that to our third parties or our partners. The next slide is just a little cheat sheet of who's who. So again, the HUD preparer, if those of you on the call are either RAD staff or multifamily production staff, then you are the HUD preparer. I know we have a lot of FEOs and REOs, that's field environmental officers and regional environmental officers on the phone. You actually fall on the ECO under this pretty plant as the environmental compliance officer. And as always, the role for the ECO is to offer technical assistance for any project, and for environmental assessments over 200 units, they actually go into HEROS and review and comment. And then we've already defined partners as third-party consultants, public housing authorities, applicants, and lenders. So Liz, let me turn it over to you.
All right, so there are 4 basic user roles in HEROS. Oh, I was going to make a note about questions before I get going on that. If you have any questions, our preferred way of doing that is to use the raise your hand functionality. So Robert will be keeping an eye on that. So if you could raise your hand if you have a question, then you can read it out. You can also enter a question into the chat pod as well. But we prefer the hand raising. Okay, back to the slide. We have 4 basic user roles in HEROS, each with different associated privileges. 2 of them only come up with Part 58 reviews. That's responsible entity users and state agency users. So we're not going to worry about those today. But for our purposes here, we're going to focus on HUD and partner users. So HUD users are all of you. That includes all HUD staff who act as the environmental review preparer, including appraisers, underwriters, and transaction managers, as well as our environmental staff, everybody who signs off on reviews in HEROS, everybody from HUD. Partner users are the consultants, contractors, recipients, and applicants who facilitate HUD's environmental review and are the target of this rollout. So they can assist with certain Part 50 reviews right now, and they can also in the future assist responsible entities with Part 58 reviews once we get that rollout going later this year. Next slide. We want you to be aware of kind of how this is set up in the system, just so you have a general idea of how this works. We're going to use Jane Doe as an example. Jane is employed by Enviro Professionals, Inc., which is a thing I made up and put in HEROS. So she is associated with Enviro Professionals as her partner organization in HEROS. Enviro Professionals has been contracted by 3 different organizations to assist with their environmental reviews. Fairfax County and the City of Alexandria, which are both responsible entities doing Part 58 reviews, and HUD does Part 50 reviews. So depending on her user privileges, Jane can assist either Fairfax or Alexandria with Part 58 reviews and HUD with Part 50 reviews. So each partner user is associated with at least one partner organization, and each partner organization must be in turn associated with at least one responsible entity or HUD.
Liz, question. I'll raise my hand on the thing. When it says HUD, now in the FHA programs for multifamily mortgage insurance, the lender is actually contracting on behalf of HUD. So there is an intermediary there, and I bring it up now so that it's clear tomorrow. There are folks here don't care, but the lender, the environmental will be, well, wait, do I have that access because I'm actually a client of the lender who in turn is a client of HUD. So just a note for clarification, that there's sort of a dotted line box in between HUD and environmental on at least some of these transactions.
HEROS doesn't care about that relationship, but yes.
Right. They will be confused, though, if you don't point it out to them.
That's a good point. All right. So these next couple of slides compare how the process is changing with this rollout. So right now, as Sarah went through, your partners are assembling all their various documents, maps, and analysis and sending it to you, whether by email, Dropbox, whatever method they need to use. Then you're taking everything that they submit to you and inputting that into HEROS, including uploading all those documents. We know that is a lot of work. So starting tomorrow for RAD and soon for FHA, we're going to streamline that process by having your partners input those documents and analysis directly into HEROS. And this is the same slide from HUD's perspective. Currently, you're taking their submission, reviewing it to make sure it's complete, satisfactory, and uploading everything as HEROS, as well as making all findings and determinations, everything that has to be done by HUD, and getting all signatures. And with this rollout, you're still going to have to do most of that. You're still going to have to review everything they give you, make sure it's up to HUD standards. And of course, there's still certain steps that have to be done by HUD. But you won't have to do all the uploading and inputting and translating whatever they gave you into something that makes sense with HEROS. So that should avoid a lot of duplication of effort and make all of this go a lot faster. Now we're going to get into the mechanics a little bit of how to work with partners in HEROS. So as you know, these are basically the steps in the environmental review process. There's initiating the review, including defining the project, then determining the level of review, complying and documenting compliance with the related laws and authorities, and finalizing the review. Those first three steps are generally going to be initiated by a partner user, with the HUD user coming in after to confirm their work and make final determinations. The fourth step has to be done by HUD. Only HUD can complete those last steps to complete and sign off on a review. Short term, the partner user has to be the one to initiate the review. They have to be the person who presses the Start New Environmental Review button. This is kind of a bug that's going to be fixed, hopefully in May. But until then, if a HUD user starts a review, they won't later be able to assign it back to a partner. We don't anticipate this being a huge issue, since it kind of makes more sense on our side for the partner to start the review anyway. But we imagine it might be a bigger issue right as we get ramped up. If you just started a review and now you'd like a partner to help you out with it, then you would need to, and you want to assign it to them, get in touch with me or Sarah. We can work with the consultant to reassign the review manually, but that's likely to take about a week. So it should be kind of a last resort option for now. Starting in the spring, this shouldn't be an issue anymore, but it's one little thing to ramp up. Okay, once the review is assigned to you, when the partner is ready for you to get started, you'll receive a notification email that the review has been assigned. So this email is going to include the name of the review and any comments that they entered when they assigned the review to you. So make sure you're watching out for those comments, because I know they're not exactly set off very clearly in that email. It's not very beautifully formatted. But once you've gotten that email, when you log into HEROS, you should see that review on your dashboard as soon as you log in, so you can select it and begin editing. One thing to note, if you select Show All on the dashboard, you will be able to see all the reviews that partners are working on, even if they haven't yet been assigned to HUD. And we ask that you don't look at those reviews. Please wait until reviews are actually assigned to HUD before taking a look at their contents. I want to draw your attention to our cheat sheets. We have one for RAD that we're distributing this week, and we're finalizing the FHA version. But these cheat sheets detail how each program would like their partners to complete environmental reviews for their projects. So this will tell them what to enter in key fields and questions in HEROS that we think might create confusion or have potential to be difficult, whether that's the correct response for your program or a placeholder that HUD will replace later. So as HUD employees, you're responsible for reviewing the information provided and supplementing that information as needed. It's a good idea to read through the cheat sheet and know what instructions we gave the partner users so that you know how to clean up after it. And our next few slides are going to show you and your partner, how you and your partner should complete the first couple screens in HEROS. And a lot of this is taken straight from the cheat sheet so you can see how they work. So starting with screen 1105, the initial screen, the first two columns here are just copied and pasted from the cheat sheet. And then the last column tells you as a HUD employee what you should do with that field. So in all cases, it's HUD's responsibility to confirm all of your partner's entries and enter any missing information, including replacing our placeholders with real information. So for project name, number, and HUD program, you should just review your partner's entries and make sure they're correct. And you can always edit any of these fields at any time. And for estimated HUD-assisted amounts and estimated total project costs, partners are instructed to enter 0. So it'll be your job to come in and enter the final estimates when you do your review. For the rest of the initial screen, your job is pretty easy. Just confirm their entries regarding whether the project anticipates outside funds, whether it impacts more than 200 units, and the information on all the parties involved. When it comes to applicant or grant recipient fields, partners should search for the party to link the review to them in the system. So information on all public housing authorities has been imported into HEROS. So your partner should be able to link the review to them by searching for them. Hopefully that makes a little intuitive sense once you get into the system, but you should find that if they're working with public housing authorities, that the review should be linked to them. And the next slide is how to complete screen 1125, the project summary screen. Here again, the partner should be able to complete just about the whole screen, but you'll need to review it carefully and confirm that it meets HUD standards. This is going to be really important on project description, because if your partners haven't provided a good project description, you're not going to be able to complete the review. So you would need to follow up with them and make sure that you've got something complete and accurate and descriptive enough for you to do an environmental review. The only field here that your partners can't complete is field inspection. If HUD completed a site inspection for the project, you would enter that information here. They wouldn't have that information. For level of review, partners can't make the final decision about a project's level of review, but they can make a preliminary suggestion. That's going to be a theme. The final decision about level of review has to be HUD, so make sure you check their level of review and confirm that you agree with their entry on this screen. So again, the cheat sheets and program guidance give you and your partners information on how to determine a project's level of review. But we review the fundamentals on this slide, which you're probably pretty familiar with, depending on how many of these trainings you've come to. So as you hopefully know, Part 50 outlines 4 different levels of review for HUD projects. Under NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, the default would be for every project to require an environmental assessment, but HUD has outlined certain types of projects, or certain types of activities, rather, that are categorically excluded from NEPA. So if all activities included in a proposed project are categorically excluded, then a full NEPA review is not required. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but I do want to highlight the lowest level of review, which is categorically excluded, not subject to 50.4, or CENST, or sensed. RAD projects never fall into this level of review, so you can ignore this category. For FHA multifamily, a project will be CENST only if it's both already in HUD's portfolio and any physical impacts are limited to routine maintenance. So this would be all 223A7s and very small universe of 223Fs. So they would only need it if they're already in the portfolio and limited to routine maintenance. So essentially, if they're acting like 223A7s. If you're not sure if something is routine maintenance, we have a memo that goes through that, and that's going to be linked to in the cheat sheet. It's on the website. For projects that fall into that level of review, the only requirement is that they have flood insurance for any structures in the floodplain and meet some housing requirements. And Sarah's going to talk about that a little bit more.
Okay. I have a question. So if a partner has started a review and chose the wrong level of review, and so when we get it, we say that no, instead of it being category excluded subject to, it's actually an EA. So are we able to select EA, and then at that point, do we have to send it back to them so that they can complete all of the environmental review requirements, or is that our responsibility?
It probably makes sense to assign it back to them to have them fill in all of the EA stuff at that point.
Okay.
So I'll talk a little bit more about this when it makes sense to assign it back to them versus when it makes sense to just kind of do it yourself. And it, in a lot of cases, it's going to depend on how much work it would be. So if it's a situation where it'd be kind of easy to just fix some language yourself, then you might just want to do it yourself. If it's going in and doing a whole EA,
Right.
you probably want to assign it back to them and make them fix it.
Okay.
So with level of review, at any time you can change the level of review. It's not going to delete everything they did. It'll still save. So don't worry about changing the level of review from CEST to an EA and suddenly losing all of your related laws and authorities analysis. It'll still be in there.
Okay.
But in that case, I would assign it back to them and make them supplement it. If you're going the other way, then they're just deleting work that they wasted their time on. So you can probably just keep going from there yourself. Good question, though. All right, and now I think I'm going to pass it back to Sarah.
Okay, thanks, Liz. So all of you should hopefully recognize this list as the list of laws and authorities that make up a HEROS review. These are the equivalent of Part A of the old 4128. And continuing the theme of the morning, partners can initiate each of these laws and authorities, but they can't make the final determination. So each of these laws and authorities has a HEROS screen, and it has prompts and explains what needs to be uploaded and what determinations need to be made. So in each of these, you'll need to go in, review what the partner put in, take a look at what they've uploaded, and then make sure that you follow the prompts to make the HUD determinations. And Liz is going to go through a few of these in details that are more complicated, but that's the overall system. One thing that's really key, and so if you have your slides out, if you can put a star here or make a note, is that HEROS was designed to cover all program areas. And so it won't capture MAP or RAD nuances. So again, so just to be clear, you or the partner could be following the HEROS prompts exactly and have every piece of compliance in for HEROS and be out of compliance with the MAP or RAD programs because there are additional requirements. So it's really important to know the guidance from your program area and make sure that that is uploaded and considered in HEROS. So on this slide, you can see at the top, this mentions some additional requirements that the MAP guide imposes. So for example, we require radon reviews and have specific guidance on that. There's specific guidance on asbestos reviews. There's requirements for looking at fall distance from towers. Now, HEROS actually does help you with this because there's a HEROS screen that I'm going to, in a few minutes, show what it looks like, and hopefully most of you know about this. So that one gives you a little bit of guidance. There is an additional set, which is at the bottom of this slide, of requirements that are above and beyond regulatory requirements, and these are trickier. So for example, probably 3/4 of Chapter 9 of the MAP Guide is dedicated to how to handle contamination and be in compliance with the MAP Guide if there's contamination. So if you're following just the prompts in HEROS on contamination, you'll miss a lot of requirements from the MAP Guide. So it's important when you're reviewing the information to not just do the minimum of what HEROS asks, but be aware of what's required for your program. Another example is explosive and flammable hazards. HEROS follows the regulation, and this requirement only kicks in for the regulation if there is new construction or you're doing rehab that results in additional people living in a building. The MAP Guide actually wants you to look at this even for existing projects that do not increase number of people living in the building. So it's important, again, to know the requirements, and there's plenty of room in HEROS to add additional information or put in additional information in the compliance sections. The next slide has a couple of examples for RAD. So For you, the RAD program, the PHA or owner can decide to either do a phase 1 or a transaction screen. So when the housing specific screen comes up, when the contamination screen comes up, you'll need to know that that's something that is in the RAD program requirements, and that you can upload a transaction screen. And with radon, it's encouraged but not required. So in that case, when the housing specific screen comes up, you will need to know the RAD program guidance in order to complete that screen. So HEROS is a baseline, and there may be additional requirements that you and the partners need to know about. Okay, back to you, Liz.
All right, just making sure. All right, so once we get all of this into HEROS with a partner involved, things can get pretty complicated. There are ways in which HEROS was really ready for partners and ways where HEROS still leaves a lot of gray areas that we're going to have to muddle through. So try to tell you which one is which. Sorry about these next few slides. Like we've been saying, your partners can and should initiate HUD's review of every related law and authority listed in 50.4, as well as the additional requirements in the MAP guide and the RAD guidance. For many of these, your partners should be able to figure out whether the project complies with that factor. And you'll just need to confirm that you agree with their conclusions and that they have provided sufficient documentation to back up those conclusions. So these simple compliance factors where the project complies work pretty well in HEROS. Partner users can complete those screens, leave any notes or clarifications that they have for you in the compliance determination, and upload their documents. The only thing they can't do on the related laws and authority screens is respond to the final question on each screen, which is about whether formal compliance steps or mitigation is required. You will have to click through each screen and demonstrate that HUD has checked the partner's work by responding to that question yourself. So in a couple slides, we're going to show how that looks. So don't worry if that doesn't really make sense from just me describing it. We'll get to it. The problem comes in the related laws and authorities where there are steps that a partner can't take. For example, partners should not begin Section 106 consultation under the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 7 consultation under the Endangered Species Act, or the 8-step process under Part 55. Similarly, in any factor that requires mitigation measures or other changes or consultation, they may make suggestions, but the final decisions are going to be HUD. So HEROS requires users to respond to all system-generated questions on each screen before they can upload documentation. Therefore, where partners have documentation to upload, but they're not legally able to comply with all requirements, they still need to get to the end of the screen to where the upload section is. So they need to respond to every question using their best assumptions and suggestions, and then explain to you what they did. So in the compliance determination section at the end of each screen, they should describe any assumptions they made and clearly state which responses are merely preliminary or suggestions for HUD versus which ones are kind of clearly outcomes. So you should review the recommendations and notes and use those to finalize the screen as necessary. So here we have kind of the aggregated screen where we summarize compliance with all the related laws and authorities. So as you'll recall, if you've used HEROS before, the screen itself is not editable. It just summarizes the information that you entered on other screens, which you can access by clicking the hyperlink in the left column. But in the right column, you see the compliance determination. HEROS generates suggested language here, but your partner should be supplementing that with their notes and suggestions where necessary to clarify their conclusions. In the middle column, it shows the response to the question, are formal compliance steps or mitigation required? This is going to be blank when you first log in, or when the review is first assigned to you, because they don't have the privileges to respond to this question. So you're going to need to click through each screen to complete this summary by responding to that question. And it'll be clear whether or not you've done that, because until you do that, this column is going to remain blank. So we're going to look at an example of one of the trickier factors, which is the floodplain management screen. And we're going to start by looking at the screen from the partner's point of view. The partner will respond to each question as completely and accurately as possible to determine whether the project complies or can, with mitigation, comply with that law or authority. So in this example, the project is not accepted from 5512C. It is in a 100-year floodplain, and no exceptions in 5512A or B apply, which means the project will require the 8-step process. This means the partner cannot fully complete the full analysis because only HUD can take responsibility for the 8-step process. And this next question creates kind of a technical problem. The partner will be prompted to describe all mitigation measures, and they have to enter text here before they can proceed to the screen summary and upload their documents. However, mitigation measures will not be officially defined until after you have completed the 8-step process. So you have this paradox here. In situations like this, where they need to upload documents, but they're not legally able to comply, we suggest that they respond to all questions, again, using their best assumptions and recommendations. So look for their recommendations here. In this example, they have very clearly denoted what are their notes versus, these are only suggestions from your partner. When the partner has completed all required questions, they will be directed to the screen summary to summarize their compliance. A compliance determination will be automatically generated, but partners should use this space to leave any notes, comments, or suggestions they have for you. And again, their comments should be clear about what responses are final or final for them, and which are only advisory. Next, they'll upload all their supporting documents that you'll need to complete the screen. And as you can see, the final question on this screen is grayed out and cannot be answered, or hopefully you can see that. That's because I took this screenshot when I was logged in as a partner user, and again, they don't have privileges to answer this question. All right, so now we're going to look at the same screen from your perspective. So you'll want to review their responses to each question, along with any supporting documentation, and confirm that you agree with their responses. When you reach a question or prompt where the partner has entered a placeholder, be sure to update the entry. So if you click through, and now our HUD user has replaced the recommended mitigation measures with a final determination of what the mitigation measures are going to be on the project. When you get to the compliance determination, review the partner's notes and update them with your own. And again, make sure to make it clear which comments were left by the partner and which are HUD's. One other system quirk to note here, it's important that you review the partner's notes in the compliance determination before you make any changes above in the screen. If you change any responses to the questions above, for example, if you say, actually this was in a 500-year floodplain, that's going to reset the whole screen. So any text that was entered in the compliance determination will be cleared. Really sorry. So we're instructing our partners to save the Word document version of the environmental review record and email it to you when they assign you the review. So in case you accidentally delete there's any text that they entered, you can find that in the Word document version of the environmental review record. You'll also find the documents they provided here, so make sure to review those. Those are not going to be lost, regardless of what you do on the screen, unless you press the red X button. But anything else, those should stay. And then, of course, you'll actually be able to answer this question as a HUD employee. So make sure you select an answer here. All right, so you might recognize the partner worksheets, which you made to help partners submit project information in a way that's more consistent with HEROS before we rolled HEROS out to them. Unfortunately for us now, the worksheets are a little more clear about what a partner can and cannot do than the screens actually in HEROS are. So if you're working with partners who aren't familiar with the requirements, these worksheets might be helpful to figure out what they can and cannot do. Although the cheat sheet covers it as well. All right. In the old way of doing things, a lot of you would get one huge PDF from your partners that included every document that should go into the environmental review record in one massive document. And rather than forcing you to take that one PDF and divide it into 20 smaller PDFs, we told you it was okay to upload that document once and then reference it throughout your environmental review. With the rollout to partners, that is now over. Your partner should be uploading all documents on the appropriate screen. That means they should be uploading the Phase 1 environmental site assessment on the contamination screen, the wetlands map on the wetland screen, the farmlands map on the farmland screen. That should make your review a lot faster, and we think it's fair to hold partners to that standard. But be aware that we're kind of raising that bar. All documents should be uploaded in the corresponding space when the system actually asks for them. So I don't know if any of you were taking that shortcut before, but your partners should not be doing it. This screen kind of summarizes everything we just looked at and some things that we haven't gotten to yet. But you're just going to check through each screen and confirm all of your partners' entries. With the addition of partners into HEROS, you should save a lot of time because you won't be making all of these entries and uploading documents yourself. But that doesn't mean that you can just turn the process completely over to them. It's still going to be your responsibility to check through at each stage of the environmental review and make sure that you agree with everything they've done. Maybe the most important step is to complete any consultation and determinations that's required to comply with the related environmental laws and authorities. So in the next few slides, we're going to look at detail at the related laws and authorities that we anticipate creating the most potential confusion as we roll out. So we're going to start with floodplain management, which we already kind of looked at. These are the instructions that we're providing to partners in the cheat sheet. They should create a ferment with the site marked, determine whether the project is in a floodplain, and make a recommendation to HUD about whether any exceptions in 5512 exempt the project from Part 55 or the 8-step process. They should not complete the 5 or 8-step process themselves, but they should assist you with those processes and make recommendations to you. You should review all of their entries and documents on that screen, confirm their entries, and complete the 5 or 8-step process if it is required. Note that your applicant or grant recipient should pay for the notices if it is required. Next, wetlands protection is pretty much the same. The partner should provide a national wetlands inventory map showing the project's proximity to any wetlands. If there are wetlands, they should defer to you on how to proceed. You should decide whether to consult with the Fish and Wildlife Service about the presence of wetlands or require a wetlands delineation survey. And if there are wetlands on the site that require the 5 or 8-step process, you'll need to complete that process with their assistance. Endangered Species Act. Oh, do we listen? Oh no. Endangered Species Act is the next one. It's a little different. Oh, good. We're back. In most areas, partners may not consult with the Fish and Wildlife Service or the National Marine Fisheries Service, and they will be ignored if they try to consult with them. Your partners should make a preliminary suggestion about whether consultation is required, and if you determine that consultation with the services is appropriate, they should assist you with assembling all the consultation documentation, but all contact with the services should go through HUD. Finally, probably the trickiest one in HEROS as far as this rollout goes is going to be historic preservation. Just like endangered species, your partner should not be contacting any of the consulting parties, including the SHPO, and it's especially crucial that they not contact any tribes directly. They should make preliminary suggestions about the effects determination, describe their conclusions, and upload all available documentation. Then you will complete any consultation. In all cases, you're going to review and independently evaluate all of their entries, follow up on any missing or incomplete information, and correct anything that isn't up to your standards. All of that in addition to the actual work of consultation and making the official effects finding. And then we go back to Sarah. Right?
Okay. And before I talk about this slide, just want to reiterate the point that Liz made because I think it's very important and could lead to tears and frustration, which is that when you're reviewing what comes in from your partners, and you see that early on the screen, they made the wrong determination. They said something was exempt when it shouldn't be, or they said it was, required when it's not. If you make that change, everything that they've entered and uploaded will be deleted. So just be very careful. And we're going to show again, so we'll reiterate again that we're requesting a Word document so that you'll actually have the text there so you can recreate if something goes wrong, but just keep that in mind and be very careful. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit, I mentioned earlier about the housing requirements. That is the slide that is showing. So when you're doing a review for RAD or for FHA multifamily, this screen will show up at all levels of review, actually. And it covers lead-based paint, asbestos, radon, and the additional hazards and nuisances that are in the MAP guide and the 232 guide. So this one walks you through, same thing as the other screens, you upload documentation. This can also be initiated by the partner. The next screen, while I have everyone here, I just wanted to share some guidance. Because this screen pops up at all levels of review, there have been some questions and some confusion about what to do if it pops up at one of the lowest levels of review. So this screen you can use as a handy cheat sheet. If, again, for RAD, you're never going to have a categorically excluded not subject to level of review. So this only applies to multifamily FHA. So for those of you in multifamily FHA, if you're doing a 223A7 deal, even though the screen pops up, you don't have to do compliance except for radon because it's encouraged. So if we encourage it, if the applicant has included radon documentation, you would need to put it in this screen. If they didn't, you can move on. For the 223F, if it meets the categorically excluded not subject to requirements, you do have to require with lead-based paint. Same deal for radon, it's encouraged, and so if it does come in, you need to put it in the screen, but you don't have to do further compliance with asbestos or the nuisances and hazards. So just a little point of clarification, and we're going to share this with the partners as well. When you're doing new construction or a sub-rehab that is over the threshold for a categorical exclusion, you have to do an environmental assessment. If you're thinking back to the old 4128, this is Part B. This has always been required, but I think when it shows up in HEROS, it seems a little more formal and is catching some people off guard. So I want to reiterate that we do need to complete the environmental assessment factors. That's what's showing up on this screen here. And just like the other parts of HEROS, partners can initiate this. They can upload documentation. They can put in compliance language, but HUD staff need to review it and look at all that documentation and supplement, request additional information, revise as needed. So that is a part of the environmental review. We do have environmental factor guidance. So this is a screenshot from the HUD Exchange. And if you do a search environmental assessment HUD Exchange, it will take you right to this screen. And the key piece of guidance here is the fourth document down, which says environmental assessment factors guidance. And so that will give you some helpful guidance on what HUD is looking for here. I want to just talk about one other thing in the environmental assessment, and that is in addition to the environmental factors guidance, there are other questions when you're at the EA level that you and our partners have to complete. This one, again, can be partner initiated. So in this screen, there are two questions. This is the project justification screen. The first question asks about purpose and need, and the second question asks about existing conditions and trends. So I just want to spend a minute, and what we're seeing commonly is that people will put in the same documentation for each question, but they're actually separate questions. So the top question, purpose and need, is answering the question, how will this project address housing needs in the community? So dropping in the market demand is a perfectly fine answer to that question. The second question is asking for a description of the project site, existing conditions and trends. So it's looking for character, features, and resources of the site and the surrounding area. So examples might be, is the project in a historic district? Is there a stream or any natural areas on or adjacent to the site? That's what we're looking for there. And we're also looking for trends. So an example there would be, this is an industrial area that is developing and gentrifying. That would be a trend that's going on, and our project is accelerating that trend perhaps. So there are two separate questions, and I just wanted to highlight what we're looking for there.
Thanks. I was just taking notes on your comments there. That was really helpful. All right, this next screen is the mitigation measures and conditions screen. This is a place where it's going to be really important to check your partner's work. You want to make sure that you've updated any entries they've made, so no placeholders are left here. So in this example, I think we still show a placeholder saying that the responsible entity, pretend that says HUD, is going to figure out what the final mitigation measures are. So if you do see something that needs to be updated or corrected, you can click on the hyperlink to go to the screen where they actually entered that text. So if you clicked on floodplain management here, I didn't actually have any animation on this one, then you can go and update that screen. Note also that the mitigation plan text box at the bottom of the screen is required. So your partners will get this error message that you see here if they try to proceed to the next screen without completing it. So this text box is going to be kind of the last place where you'll need to update any placeholder text. Because after this screen, your partners will go to the prepare notification screen. You're never going to see this screen. This is where partner users are directed after they've gone as far as they can go. This prompts them to generate an environmental review record, which again, they should save and send to you for your records. And then it prompts them to assign the review to you so that you can complete the review. This next slide is a reminder of what that Word version of the environmental review looks like. Make sure your partners are sending it to you so that you have a backup in case anything is lost. If you click through, these are where you'll find their compliance determinations that they entered. So if you do accidentally delete their compliance determinations, you'll be able to recover them here or here. And they should submit that to you. All right. If you find anything that you receive from your partners is incomplete or inaccurate, you should work with them to get that fixed. As I was saying before, if it depends on the scale of the issue, you might want to assign the review back to them to fix. If they've got something at a really large scale wrong, like the level of review, or you might want to follow up with them just by phone or email and then fix it within HEROS yourself if it's something minor. Remember that HEROS gives you some tools for communication, but it's not the only tool, and sometimes it's not the best one. So, still have all the normal ways of getting in touch with people, like emailing or calling people. I think sometimes people forget about that once they're in the system. So when you do communicate through HEROS, we want to make sure that you understand what partner users can and cannot see. Here we have a screenshot of the certification screen, which only HUD staff can access. So there are spaces for comments on this screen, but be aware that the comments you enter here are only going to be visible to other HUD staff. So if there's anything you want to communicate to your partners, you're going to need to use another way of getting that information to them. If you want your partner to make any changes to the review on their side, you're going to need to assign it back to them. Once a partner user or any user assigns a review to someone else, they can't make any changes until it's assigned back to them. So, quick reminder, if you haven't had a chance to use this screen yet, you can search for users by first or last name. Make sure you select them in that top table before you press the assign button. If the review has already been assigned to somebody, you can also skip the search and just select them from that table at the bottom of the screen. It'll show everybody who's been previously assigned to the review so you can find them quickly. As well as assigning reviews back and forth with your partners, you'll also use this screen to assign to all the HUD staff who need to certify the review. So that would be your supervisor, the environmental clearance officer, if it's an environmental assessment affecting 200 or more units, and your approving official for your program. This comment box at the bottom of that screen, is a good place to enter anything that you want to communicate with your partners or other HUD staff. They will get that in the email notification. But there's a big caveat here, which is that anything you enter here will be visible to everyone with access to that review. So I'll show what I mean by that in a minute, but do not enter any comments that insult anyone else here, because they will be able to see it later. As we went over at the very beginning of this presentation, both the assignor and the assignee will receive an email when a review is reassigned, but it's also a good idea to reach out outside of HEROS before assigning a review, just to make sure you don't assign it to somebody who's on vacation or unavailable. Once a review has been assigned, the only person who can reassign it are either the current assigned user or a user with admin privileges. So if you assign a review to somebody and then it turns out they're on vacation or they've retired or whatever, you need to get it back, work with an admin user. In RAD, that's Greg and Amanda. In FHA, technical branch chiefs are admins. Sarah and I are also admins, and that's who can assign reviews for you. So I want to draw your attention to the assignment history screen. You can get it via the View Assignment History button, which was recently added to the dashboard. It will show you everyone who's been assigned a review, when the review was assigned to them, and any comments that were entered by the person who assigned the review. So this is why it's important to be careful about any comments you enter, because everyone can see whatever you entered there, and there's no way to remove these later. So those are on the review's permanent record. Sometimes we didn't think things through. All right, this is just a quick reminder that the environmental review record will go on our website for archive. Make sure that when you get to the very last screen on the review, the complete and archive screen, you press both archive and finish so that the review gets posted. Also, if you ever want to update an archive, you can always press the archive button again. So we recently had somebody who posted something and then realized that they had posted some information that should not have gone on a public-facing website. That's pretty easy to fix, actually. Just update the environmental review record to remove anything that shouldn't be posted online, and then press archive again. So you can just go back to the complete and archive screen anytime, and it'll override the last version that was on the website. All right, so that's just about it. Now we'll go through some resources. This is a very busy slide, and you've heard about all of these before, but here's some quick links to all of our resources so that you have them in one place. We're working on updating our how-to videos now, so you'll see those kind of continuously switching out as we replace the older ones with new ones. And we're also working on updating our frequently asked questions, so those should be up to date soon. Wiser modules are a resource that might be new to you, so I want to draw your attention to those. Wiser is a new tool available on the HUD Exchange. It's self-paced learning and videos and tests to walk you through all of the aspects of the environmental review process listed here. So if there's anything that you feel you need a refresher on, Wiser is a good resource. Next slide, I really hope you all know about the map guide and the RAD guidance, but here are the links where you can access them quickly. And then our next one, this is another resource you may not know about that you might find useful if you want a refresher on environmental review requirements. This is a 2-day training that Housing and OEE did in 2016, targeting FHA, but should work pretty well for RAD too. It's kind of a basic environmental review training. And here's some more just quick links to HEROS and HEROS resources. Note the last URL, if you're within the HUD network, the SSO HEROS link is our single sign-on, so that'll take you directly to HEROS without requiring you to re-enter your login credentials. And this is a slide that we made for partners, and I realized like this morning that we didn't update it for you, so I'm sorry about that. Just like the partners, you should direct technical questions to ask a question on the HUD Exchange. But the second bullet doesn't really apply to you because you are the program contacts. So if you need help with project-specific or environmental review questions, go to your field or regional environmental officer in the area where the project is located for assistance. Sorry about that. Ending on a really strong note there.
So there are a couple of clarifying questions, Liz. I'm scrolling through theirs. I've answered a couple of the kind of one-offs, but here are a couple to kind of clarify some things. Here's one for you. Partners assigned to you. Who is you? HUD or the review appraisal? If it's the HUD review appraiser, how does the partner know who the reviewer will be?
Yeah. Well, the partner, when they're ready to, when they're finished, they will assign the review to. Hopefully, they know who it should be assigned to, but I don't know how they get that information. Sarah, do you know?
So, yeah, at the point that they would submit the environmental review, they should know their RAD contact and their multi-family contact, and if they don't, they need to check in with the appropriate program staff to figure that out.
And,
so
right,
they should be
for,
coming in, and the timing should be the same, that these should be coming in with pre-apps or apps just like they are now.
So we should probably, at the training tomorrow with the partners, make it clear that for the RAD transactions, that who they should be assigning it to is their financing plan transaction manager. So that's a great question. Again, I don't know how it works in FHA or when that rolls out and stuff, but for RAD transactions, it should always be their financing plan transaction manager.
And then a clarification on your training videos. Someone's asking, how will we know which videos have been updated?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure if the website says the date they were posted. I think it might. Certainly anything that references partners is new. Once you start it, you can tell because the old videos have a very long, slow, boring introduction, and the new videos don't. So that's a really early tip. But we should probably mark that. That's a good question.
So one of the comments, and I was going to raise this as you were going through this as well, because I've seen some of these trainings before, and I know the protocol, but I've had the same experience as this individual. And she says, in my experience, the partners have always contacted the SHPO and supplied the SHPO letter.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've had these trainings too, and I've had a similar experience. What is the guidance from you all on two things? One, if the partner has already contacted the SHPO and the SHPO has not responded, or conversely, they have responded. Is it okay that they responded to a non-HUD person? So there's your question.
That's a good question. And I'm going to defer to Sarah, who I think has a better answer than me on this.
This is yeah, I would say this is a gray area. So first of all, just want to start by saying for the tribes, it's critical that it's always HUD that reaches out. So that there's no question about that. If a partner has reached out, we need to start and redo that again. For the SHPO, there are some that will simply not respond to partners, so that's easy. There are some that have a working relationship with partners and will respond. And so I think on a, the official, HUD's official approach is that HUD staff should be making this contact. If you get a project in where it's been done and the SHPO has responded, we'll take a look at that and can probably move forward. If there's any kind of adverse effect or consultation required, that needs to be HUD in the lead.
So Sarah, Robert, just kind of following up on that, if the partner sent the SHPO request along with the 106 section 106 documentation, and there's a complete 106 back from the SHPO, so they've done it. So are you saying that HUD needs to reinitiate that even though it's already been done?
So I think the answer is it depends. And I think it's important also that even if if you have a letter back saying there's no historic properties or there's no adverse effect, it's important for the HUD staff to look at that, maybe consult with the FEO and REO and make sure that it's complete. And then on a case-by-case basis, we may be able to move forward. If there is some sort of MOA that's been developed and HUD wasn't involved, that is a huge red flag, and we would need to start over there.
Okay. Thank you.
Liz, anything to add?
No, the only thing I was thinking was, sometimes you might want to, and this is another place where you want to kind of go through and independently evaluate everything they did. So if they have a letter from the SHPO that says that's fine, but you look at the letter they sent to the SHPO and it doesn't really accurately describe the situation, then that might be a place where you need to start over. So you need to make sure that people are giving the right information to the SHPO.
Yeah, and as a public service announcement, as I've been in this position for a little bit and seen a number of these projects, things often go wrong because the partner is way out ahead without talking with HUD, and that seems to be when historic preservation issues come up and go terribly awry. So as a best practice, it's always better for HUD to be in the lead on this to make sure that it's being done correctly and to reduce delays on projects.
Nothing else?
That's it. I was more worried about time than I needed to be. Any concluding comments, Sarah?
I think I would just say that as this rolls out, so those of you in RAD, as this rolls out, I think, we had a successful pilot and seemed to go smoothly, but I think there will be lots of questions, maybe things that don't go so smoothly. So just if everyone can have patience and good humor as we start this rollout, that would be great. And, let us know things that are going wrong and things that are going well, and we'll be in even better shape when it's time to roll out to multifamily FHA in the spring.
Thank
also,
you. I know.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Liz, that for many of you may have signed up for or got the invite for the partner training tomorrow. So all the RAD staff are certainly welcome to participate in that. I don't think it's necessary because it's really to teach them, and you already know the system. But if you want to join in, by all means, you're welcome. Sorry, Liz.
Oh, no. We've got one more question.
I do have one question, and this is really just to piggyback about the SHPO responses and contacts. So under RAD, if you have a project that has some local PBVs, so it went through the Part 58 process, and the responsible entity has contacted, has kind of done the legwork for the SHPO, can we just use that document, and will that be provided to the partner, or should they send it to us to upload?
I think it's another place where it depends. Sarah, do you?
Yeah, in general, OEE has determined that is okay. So if the responsible entity has done a consultation, HUD can adopt that. But I imagine there might be an exception, but that's the general policy on that.
As long as it covers all the same things.
Yeah, and so
right, that's key. Yes,
the partner will just use that information to upload, like what they received from the responsible entity. They would use that to upload, or is that sent to us to upload? Like, how do we get that information? Because usually they just receive the authorization of funds form, not the actual package that's sent to the RE.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if they would be able to get that information. I mean, if they get it, they would certainly be welcome to upload it.
Right.
But it might be something where it just is going to be easier for you to do it than to do all the coordination that would be involved in getting them to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That raises another point that I wanted to make, which is that sometimes there are multiple consultants involved. So you may have the main consultant that is doing the phase one and the laws and authorities, but you may have a second consultant that's doing the radon report, for example. So it may make sense that in those cases, there may be things that HUD staff are still uploading as the point of contact, and that I think will just play out as we go.
Yeah, speaking of that, once we do these rollouts, we always find something that is very common that a lot of people are doing that we on the HEROS team never somehow envisioned. So we find some new situation that we didn't think about, and whatever that situation is that we haven't yet uncovered for this rollout, I apologize in advance. Please keep in touch with us so that we know what's going wrong. Don't assume that we're already aware of it, because maybe we aren't. So we're happy to hear your feedback and make sure that we can get things as working as they possibly can. So thank you for your patience as we work through this. We'll get there eventually. Thank you, everybody. If there's anything else we can wrap up for today?
Hey, just Greg again on behalf of the Office of Recap. Kudos and enormous thanks to Liz and Sarah for both, not just the presentation today, but getting us to the point where we can get the partners to start entering. So we're really thrilled. Thank you.
Thank you for being the guinea pigs. We appreciate it. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Talk to you